Hi, y'all. I'm Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial entrepreneur and Amazon bestselling publisher, author, and all natural product manufacturer. I'm a champion for your natural self care, sustainable business care, and overall intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co-founders of the Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations between us and special guests about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness.
How do we do this?
Especially like you said, there's so much going on. Going to Paul Mitchell yesterday to speak was beautiful.
Congrats
And I'm
on
still
that.
I'm still on
Congrats.
cloud
Tell
9.
our listeners more about that.
Yeah, y'all. So if you know, and I read it in my bio every week, right? Shannon Mitchell. So naturally, this Paul Mitchell brand in the United States is like a cosmetic line, right? Shampoos, things like that is what I think about. And so I've always seen the Paul Mitchell building and thought about products. And so now for me to have my own handmade product, right? To have Shalo Glow, and then to be able to go speak to the students was super special. I love talking to students. And so I thought that my high school was the favorite school I spoke at, right? And then I thought it was Agnes Scott and had the opportunity to have a paid speaking gig, right? And now Paul Mitchell is like, I'm in there talking about waiting to see them for decades and thanking them for the work they do. And then having conversations like we have here, reminding them about stretching and water and their rest and their wellness. So how to make money from that is what we're talking about today. So, it's been really good conversations.
Thank you so much for that. I know you light up when you talk to students, and I know they're so lucky to have you come and talk with them and share your experience. And such a fun thing. You and I, as speakers and authors, sometimes we take it for granted because, we get to do it. And I've been thinking about it. Well, maybe we don't take it for granted, but it's not brand new to us, right? Because we
Right.
get on every week and talk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we do.
We have a speaking gig every week, same
Yeah,
time,
we
same place,
definitely
right?
do.
But I think about it, I was thinking about this with this new cohort of authors that we have coming up, because sometimes the reason they come to write a chapter with us at Connected and Wisdom Press is not just to become a published author and have that experience, but also to become a speaker, because that is part of what we talk about and do and provide the opportunity for both on the podcast and at our summit and conference. And I don't know. I don't take that piece for granted of those connections and that networking and the work we get to do in this world. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about that the other day, and I'm just grateful. Grateful to be
Yeah.
with you, friend.
Me too. Me too. I wanna do a note to what you just said because of my reaction, right? I said, when you said the take it for granted because going to the schools the last few years, I've been thinking about the school shootings. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is supposed to be a good day for the students.
Right,
Maybe somebody's upset. Maybe they're like, you're not gonna
right.
have a good day. Instead, this is what we're gonna do? So that's what I think about. So us being able to come in on StreamYard and go out to different places. I love it when we get to speak like this, right? I love having the opportunity and thankfully have always been safe and covered going into the schools and we have a good time with the students. But it's also always interesting to find who's impacted by it and who's there, right? Because you think you know who the students are, and there's veterans, there's people recovering from all different types of situations and looking for things that they can put into action today. So it's worth the risk. Everything in life has risk, and that's what we talk about with our people at Connected and Wisdom Press. But let's get into this episode so we can
Let's do
have
it.
this conversation we've been waiting for.
Episode 192.
Yes. Yes, it is, y'all. And again, we're talking about intellectual wellness, so when I think about intellectual wellness and how much my mind can hold, it's like maybe I'm not trying to hold another tool. I don't want to do another thing. I want to just be. I need some space to just be, especially as an entrepreneur. One of the huge sacrifices that we know when we talk about is that free time. What's your definition of free anyways? But now, right? All this other stuff is supposed to be done in that. So really carving out the time to do nothing is good and needed.
Well, and I think as a creative especially, right? Well, and most entrepreneurs are creatives, most people are creative, but
Mm,
that time to be and to let ideas and things bubble up, I think is beautiful and necessary. I'm noticing it for myself too, especially in spring as things grow. Like
mm,
sometimes I have some of that time while I'm multitasking of gardening.
mm,
I know we say just sit and be, but sometimes when I'm planting plants, it's
mhm,
something that's a really relaxing activity for me
yeah.
can also be a time that I'm being.
Mhm. I agree with that. I try to
Yeah.
habit stack it and make it the dishes, you know what I mean? And, like,
Mm.
let me meditate as I do the dishes since I have to do the dishes anyways, right? And I do hear what you're saying, being grounded. I think about you out in your garden and, um, your flowers and everything when I see all the beauty around here, it's beautiful out here, so, yes, to
Mm.
enjoy spring.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Well, I am excited to have this conversation today, y'all. It is pre-show when we were talking to our guest, we were vibing about some things that we had been talking about earlier in the day and just so many tools and things that are at our fingertips now for intellectual wellness. You ready for me to read this definition?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So at Women Connected Wisdom, we define intellectual wellness as including having access to different sources of information and developing critical thinking and timely decision making skills. Also, continually learning through intentional intellectual growth, situations, and artistic creativity can help maintain one's intellectual capacity. All the things.
All the things. And for me, what stood out this week is timely decision-making skills. And what that's looked like for me over the last few days is the decisions that I'm making and how to save time by delegating. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
not just making decisions at the right time, it's, "Okay, this decision is gonna make the whole day more time effective."
Mhm.
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 What about for you?
Oh, I loved, of course, it stuck out the artistic creativity
Mhm.
because I've felt a little out of balance with that lately
Yeah,
because of how much work I've been doing. So
yeah,
really allowing space for that because it is part of intellectual wellness, like my creative brain and my creative processes. And so really kind of feeling into bringing that back into balance.
yeah.
I pulled out my mixed media gel printing last weekend, but it sat on the table. So and I went off to another project. So just incremental step. I got it
Right,
out,
right.
wanna do some creativity and, hopefully this may be the weekend for that, just to
Yeah.
and maybe even
When
take it outside, so
when did you make these mugs that you showed me? That wasn't this weekend, that was before?
Oh, that was last week or 2 weeks ago. It's with my
Okay.
group that I do at Mercy Care, at the
You
City
said
of
that.
Refuge.
You
I
said
have a
that.
group that I have been doing for community care for years, and
Years?
it's with, mostly women. Occasionally, we'll get some men, but it's mostly women who are transitioning out of homelessness. And I go in and I do an hour of interplay, and we really get embodied, and they're telling our stories, and then we do an hour of creative expression or art. So we have been really having a good time making functional art. So what I showed you was these gorgeous pictures of these mugs that we did the Cricut where we taught ourselves how to cut out the designs and then we did the heat press transfer to make these just stunning personalized mugs. It was
They were beautiful, y'all.
super fun. Thank
They
you.
really were. The colors were
Mm.
vibrant, and I loved all the different designs. Yeah,
Mhm.
they were great.
We have a showcase. I'll try to put one in the show notes, but we have a showcase every year that we open up to the public because it refreshes our craft budget, basically.
Tell 'em.
So I think we've talked about it on the show before. It
Oh,
usually is towards December. It's usually before the holidays. But what
okay.
we always do first is teach ourselves how to do a new skill or a new art. And sometimes we just do it for the pure pleasure of doing it. Sometimes we do it because it's functional art and it's something that we may need. And then what we'll do is we'll give away like a gift to a family member or something. And then we do one for the showcase. So then when it comes time for holidays, people can come and buy some things and
Mm,
refresh our craft budget. But
I love
yeah,
that.
thanks for reminding me because I have been doing, I do that twice a month. regardless,
Yeah.
because I'm teaching it, but I'm still doing the creativity. And you're right, that counts.
Yeah, it does. And y'all, today we're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about business, right? Especially with it being intellectual wellness. But you just said a lot in what you said y'all do, right? We're coming out of homelessness. You're going into a new phase of life right now. It's
Mhm.
important to have that capacity to learn something new and to kind of have fun
Mhm.
with it, right? It doesn't have to be too weighty. You can do something that sparks joy.
And here's the thing I know about art and interplay. It's okay to
Mhm.
make mistakes,
Yeah.
right?
And
Because
that,
I think
yeah.
sometimes in life, especially as women, we think it's not okay to make mistakes
Mhm.
or that we've made mistakes that have led to failure or big failures or big things
Mhm.
going wrong. And then we get really shy about trying again. And
Mhm.
that it's okay to make mistakes, especially when you're creating something new or you've never done something. Because
Yeah.
that's the other thing I think that happens, especially as grown women, we think, "Oh, I should be good at this right away."
Mhm.
Well, not if you haven't done it before. Like,
Right.
it takes sometimes you can knock it out of the park the first time. But, I mean, we'd love to invite you to go back to listen to episode 1, but maybe not. Maybe
All right.
start at episode 1 192.
Mm, that's a good
But
question. Where to start?
we get better, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
get
we do.
better when we practice things and we do things and having that ease of, "Let's try something new because the
Right.
world is always changing,
Mhm.
and there's always something new. We kind of grumble about well, I grumble more than you do, I think. I think it's just age, but, about the time we get something figured out on the socials, they completely change everything. Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it works, right?
My goodness, my goodness. And we've been talking about it, y'all, because if you really follow the social media and y'all know this, and Christine and I, again, we've talked about it. I know I just said that, but it's the what happened over the holidays, right? We're talking about systems, we're talking about business. I'm super excited to have this conversation about marketing and everything today that we're about to bring you guys into. Because I said, dang, why am I not putting up social media over the holidays? And y'all know what happened. They changed those graphic dimensions. Yeah, they did right before the holidays, and so that means that there's a big push and you've already done your bulk prep. Now you gotta go back and do it again, you know what I mean? But the system in place to pivot when that pivots is part of intellectual wisdom, to do it in wellness, to do it at a certain time. Now this year, I know it's coming up. We'll be ready for the holidays. Just watch for the dimension flip, have that time blocked off, and go ahead and enjoy your planned holiday, you know what I mean? So are you ready for
Let's
me to bring up
I am
our
so
expert
ready.
guest?
I cannot
Right.
wait to have this conversation. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, it is. Y'all, today we're talking to Tina Brinkley Potts. Tina Brinkley Potts is an award-winning business strategist, best-selling author, and corporate trainer with over 1 million video views and 5 million website hits. She mentors, consults, coaches, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and small business owners in 70 countries. Her innovative programs include services that highlight your strengths and help implement 18 income streams, generating millions in revenue. Tina loves teaching clients to manifest money, time, and joy in their businesses and lives. She's a proud mother of 3 and grandmother of 6. Help us welcome to the stage, Tina. Hi, Tina.
Hi.
Welcome to
Hi.
the conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Tina, reading that bio, can I just first of all say, wow,
Oh, thank you.
wow.
Yes.
How did you get into this? Like, what started your journey?
My journey started when I went from one job and my mother got sick. And so then it was like, I'm going to start me some businesses, right? And as I was doing those businesses, like, you, you know, first time small business, you just start doing all kinds of things. But the thing that happened for me was while I was helping take care of my mom, plus having 3 children at the same time, what happened was someone called me and was like, "Hey, Tina, I need help with a telephone system." And, I'm like, "I can't. I don't have time during the day, blah, 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 blah." And they were like, "We don't care what time you do it. You could do it in the middle of the night. We just know that if you do it, you're gonna do it right." And that flipped how I started thinking about things because most of the time you think, okay, I was a controller, so I need to go find more controller jobs. Or I was this and I need to go find more of that.
Right.
When technically your skills translate so much differently. And once you've set an expertise out into the world, people remember how you've given them results. And so they get addicted to those results and they don't want it from anybody else. So that's just what happens. Yeah.
I
Yes, yes.
love that, Tina, and I love that you're bringing in the caregiving aspect. Our listeners know I've had 2 plus years of intense caregiving, and
Mhm.
it's so true for so many of our listeners, whether it's children or parents or both, being in the sandwich generation, and you're such a testament to that success. In the midst of caregiving, you're launching these new things.
And you know what's funny? I love you're talking about the caregiving portion because for a long time, one of the businesses I started while I was doing consulting was like a hobby. Okay. But I started a home care business because I felt guilty. My mom passed away. So I just wanted to love on everybody. And I did that for a long time, grew it to 40 employees. And then this became my calling, though. Like this kept taking over. So I kept going, okay, I think it's time for me to stop this part because it was kind of hindering the growth of what I was doing on this side. So I had to let the caregiving side go. Yep.
So how was that for you? I know we talk about um, the way things are portrayed on social media, right? And a lot of times what's shared is the highlight reels and what looks good. How was the process of, hey, I love what I did. I have a whole team that we've been taking care of and taking care of other people. What was it like to transition for you more into the consulting and where you've been now?
Well, I like to say I'm hard-headed in some things, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and Reverend Michael Beckwith has this saying. He says something to the effect of um that your passion will pull, pain will push you until the passion pulls, okay? And so me deciding to walk away from the home care industry, I kept having different pains. And I'll tell you one specifically. I was getting ready to get on a plane less than 2 hours later to go to a speaking engagement, and
Okay.
in walks into my office 4 different women, and they're coming in healthcare regulations to do a, uh, on the spot audit.
Mm.
And it's like, "Oh, wait a minute. I gotta hop a plane. Oh, no, I can't leave my agency right now." So deciding like that was like a hard thing. We passed the audit, we had to do they give you these things they want you to change or whatever, but we passed the audit. But the point is I had to make a decision right then and there. Like somebody was getting disappointed. If I left my agency at that point in time, that's 40 families, 40 people who get a paycheck for me, and they literally could have put us under review if I walked away. But then I got a stage that I'm going in, and there's 500 people that are anticipating me coming. And so no matter what you say, you're still disappointing, the whole show must go on. You're disappointing somebody. So I had to stay. I had to stay put for the agency. That was the decision I made. Some people might have made a different decision, but that was the decision I made. And so I
Right.
brought up that story because those kind of things kept happening. And for a while, I wanted to delegate it and, bring somebody else in to run. But I also realized that there was a certain wisdom that came with me. There was some goodwill that came with me, the way that I approach things. I approach things like, this is my family member that's about to have need some care. So this is
Right.
how you're going to handle it, right? And
That.
not everybody approached it that way. And I can tell you that way will burn you out after a while, but it was how I approached things. So I just made the decision that we can't do this anymore.
I love that story, Tina. In Still Point, one of my books, we talk about the 5 skills of self-care. And the 5th is like saying no in order to say yes. So, and it's about, self-care, about being able to say no to some things, even the good stuff. And it sounds like this was really a good thing. And having to say no to then be able to say yes to this other life and next step and next journey.
And it brought up so many things for me. Um, who do I think I am? Like, just that that calling was more than taking care of somebody's loved one. Like, it took a while to really grow into taking the blinders off. So while it might look like all glitz and glam to people now, it was not that for a while. It was okay, now, you're choosing to hop planes and, you know, go on podcast and all of these things, like,
Yes.
instead of the other things that I did day to day, but, it is the life that I chose, and I love it.
Good. And what sits well with me is still the impact, right? Instead of one person and one family, it's the countless that are gonna listen and see and download, and then the ripple effect, you know?
Mhm.
So instead of me or my friend picking up their aunt and worrying about the physical, um, risk of that, right? Now it's, "Okay, let's plug you into the palliative care," which I didn't know was a thing, palliative care when somebody has a debilitating illness. Now the family will be taken care of. Everybody outside of just the diagnosis, is looked at in different ways and can be all encompassing.
Wow, I love that you say that. The thing that comes to me when you're saying that is I know that I am built for a time such as this.
Right.
So everything that all of the experiences, all of the wisdom, and that's one of the things that I teach to all of my clients is that you have a wisdom whether you know it or not. And even though you might be putting it in all of these different silos, it really the combination of that wisdom can really serve you. And the greatest example I can give of that is right now, I'm literally helping clients automate their home care facilities, their in-home care companies, right? So at the end of the day, when I'm writing the emails and when I'm programming that email sequence or whatever, I already know it. I lived it for 7 years.
Mhm.
So when they're coming to me and they're like, "Okay, well, we do home care, but we know nothing about this." I can say, "But yes, you do. You know it because how do you sit down and talk to a family when they first call on that telephone? Or how do you sit down and talk to the family when you're going to do that assessment?" All I'm gonna do is help you pull those things out, and I'm gonna put it in this automation. And so, I love, like, helping take care of people, that's like a core value for me. And so it just shows in everything I do. So it's not going anywhere.
So part of why I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, right? Because you said something that was key. And that leads to burnout, depending on how you do it, right?
Mhm,
So you can't turn off the fact that you're this amazing person and care about people. We're not gonna dim the light and turn off the gifts and all this stuff, right?
mhm.
So with you helping your 6 and 7-figure clients and the audacious financial goals that you have for their revenue, right? How do you think about what was I thinking about? The automation, what did you say? Does it mean okay, how do you help them think about the way to enhance their earning capability? I know you help people clients in different events with that.
Mhm. So the first thing that I would say is I wanna find out what lights you up. What part of the process lights you? And then I'm gonna automate and delegate most of the rest. Now, that doesn't mean that's gonna happen tomorrow. But the goal is we're gonna get to the point where the rest of it is automated and delegated. The other thing I'm looking for is when someone first starts working with me, I give them this long assessment, right? It's a really long assessment, right? And I'm not even gonna lie, it used to be 17 pages, but now I've made it all colorful and everything. I think it's up to 50. But whatever. Um,
Whatever it takes.
yeah, whatever it takes. But the
Yeah.
point is that most of the time when people come and they start first talking to me, I hear all the versions that other people want for them,
Mm,
or they've looked at somebody else's version and they want that.
mm,
But by the time I'm done breaking it down, I'm really getting to the essence of what they truly want. And then burnout typically seems to go away because it isn't that we need to replenish when you're always working from that full cup. There's a difference. Like, there are some people you can work all night on something if you're in that state of love. If you're in that state of, oh, I gotta get it done. No, you're going to burn out. So if I can get you to that state of, I really want to do this, and you look up and you've been working, you think it's 5 minutes and it's been 5 hours.
mhm.
That's a different type of expression. I think that's the
Mm.
expression that our creator wanted. The, perfect self-expression. I think that's what that means.
I
Mm,
call that the creative flow. Like
mm,
when you kind of get hyper focused and you are just going,
Mhm.
and it's a big project and you kind of expand time when it's happening, right? Something that
yes.
some people would say it would take a week or 2 weeks. You look up and it's like, boom, may not be completely perfect, but 95% of it is done.
Mhm,
And I love that flow.
mhm. And we've talked about art, right? We talked about community and collaboration. What I think about with what you're saying and how we show up authentically is this professional relationship, right? Like you had your team of 40, you had your professional relationships there, whether they were lateral or in the organization itself, right?
Mhm.
But then with
Mhm.
what you stepped into, you had those relationships there too. So to the person of to the point of somebody who cares a lot about people and is trying to be mindful of that emotional balance when you're doing so much and still helping people, can we talk about how you would describe a strong professional relationship?
Wow, that's such a good question. If I think about a strong professional relationship, I'm thinking about those that when I call, they're going to show up, or the ones that when they call me, they know I'm going to show up.
Mhm.
And for me, what I found is those are the relationships where I know exactly what's their sweet spot and they know exactly what's mine because we've we've gotten rid of all of those filters, right? Like they say when we first meet somebody, they said no matter what you do, you're posturing, right? Like cuz you're trying to present your best foot forward. But then when you really get to know that true person, professional beneath it, then you start knowing what their core value and what they really offer the world. Now, it used to be when I would do a project, I would try to lift everybody up.
Yeah.
Okay. And when
Mhm.
I would try to lift everybody up, I'm putting them all on my back. So that's where burnout was happening.
Mhm.
Now, I don't do that at all. When I'm doing a project, I'm looking at who can do this part the best.
Mhm.
Who do I know that is going to approach that part of it? I don't need them to do all the rest. I just need them to do this one thing, and I know that they're going to knock that out of the park. And I'm going to build that project that way. It helps. We can't guarantee success, but it really does put the odds in your favor when you do this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's just a whole different relationship. So I'm always looking for that. And that when I'm building those relationships, what's the authentic part here? What's their sweet spot? And making sure they understand what mine is too, so that we can be that for each other.
Yes. And what I hear you saying is something I had to work on, right? I too changed jobs. My mom got sick, right? Didn't
Mhm.
know her for 12 years. So now her getting sick is a huge deal, right? Um, and when I stepped down the first time from management, I realized oh, because you believe in people's potential, because you care about them, you are always encouraging them and telling them the good things, right? But as a leader, you are cutting their feet out from under them if you are not developing them. You are not serving them if you don't know the team's strengths and weakness and are not effectively putting them in the right position. And that's when I realized I needed to get better at moving different people based on what they wanted to do, based on their strengths and weaknesses, and then build the development from there. So I hear what you're saying.
There's a different kind of burnout
Mm.
for those of us who are really trying to build everyone up.
Hey, y'all, this is a great place to take a break, take a deep breath, and hear from our awesome sponsors that make Women Connected in Wisdom podcast possible. Shannon, we are so grateful that Shayla Glow is the sponsor of the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. And I wanted to take this moment to ask you, when you think about the people who use Shayla Glow, who are we talking about?
That's a good question. I think about three groups really. One, the group that's removing hair, right? So whether you're using laser hair removal, waxing, shaving, you got to make sure that you're putting back what you're taking out. The second group, I think about those with dry skin and the problems that might cause, right? The scars, itching, burning, whatever the situation is, you definitely need all three steps, right? The exfoliation, making sure you're taking the dead skin cells off. The oil, putting in the moisture, and then the shea butter with the aloe, sealing it, helping you heal. Those things help both groups, right? And third, for the third group is those with chronic illness. The story is personally from cancer and different diseases that our population is dealing with on a daily basis throughout families as individuals. So I'm thinking about my mom and my grandmother and those around me with the same generational ties, right? And what positive, healthy habits we can start to make sure that we're maintaining our wellness, especially because the skin is like the cape, the exterior, the shield for your immune system. So with COVID, we have to be intentional about covering ourselves. And those are the groups I think about.
I love it. And you know what else I love about your product? It's all natural, handmade, and it smells great, y'all. So
yes,
yay.
esthetician tested. Yes, esthetician tested and approved. Yes. What about you? When you think about your company, what groups of people do you think about?
Well, I work with individual coaching clients. I work in community classes and with corporate teams. And with all of them, I use a strength-based embodied approach to help folks connect with themselves and access joy, reduce burnout, and build resilience. Especially during these times, I think we need it. I think we need all the hashtag partnership power we can get.
Yes.
And when you learn to put that in a different container, so for instance, next month I will be at a doing a keynote for young girls, over 200 girls, and
Okay.
just going to tell them about my life and tell them why I don't care what you've come from.
Right.
You can do whatever you want, right? Like,
Mhm.
so now when I want to build someone up, I put it in a container. I do it in different kind of containers. But when it comes to the success of a project, I'm not willing to risk it there anymore, because that's where the burnout was happening for me. Because think about what that does, okay? If you're in a company and you're trying to build all of these people up around you, you're still carrying the weight of those responsibilities. And because you're carrying the weight, now you're doing your job, plus more than less likely, you're going to end up doing some of their job too. And that's because you like them or love them or whatever. But what you end up doing is you're actually hurting yourself. And so I'm very much into a you first movement. I need you to take care of yourself first and then be good to everybody else. So even though a lot of people would look at me and go, oh no, but Tina does this for this person and that person does that. Let me tell
After
you,
me.
it really is after me.
Mhm.
It
You
really
have
is.
to put that oxygen mask on
And
first.
and
Have to.
it's sad because you are not taught that anywhere,
Mm.
right? They tell us to be in service and to do all of these things, but being in service, what was the word? The sacred servant, okay, but you can't be that sacred servant if you're not honoring the God that's inside of you first. And
Mhm.
so that is just so important. So
Yes.
yeah, I'll get in a sermon, so I'll
No,
just
I love it. I love it. It's so important. I was just in one the other day. I said, even the 3 that he took with him up to the mountain fell asleep. Everybody will fall asleep. It is okay. They miss it. Not everybody's going to see the vision. And especially if you feel like you're putting them on your back. And I've done that, y'all. Like the year my mom passed away, November 2019, that
Mhm.
holiday season before, especially working in hospitality, y'all know we're at work. Everybody else is celebrating. We're at work. And I had no schedule requests. I left my schedule wide open for the team because I knew they had families. And what about your family?
Mhm.
Your people, you taking care of yourself first so you can show up full. And I was talking about that yesterday with the Paul Mitchell students. Pouring from, I think it's Iana Van Zant that taught me that to serve from the saucer, right? Your cup is
Mhm.
overflowing and serve other people from the saucer. And that helps me still be who I am and know that I'm giving to other people, know that I'm blessed beyond measure, right? But it's also not me pouring or tilting my head how I used to in these pictures all tilted over. No, baby, stand up straight. Okay. And if they're in the picture with you, they will be aligned and that's
Mhm.
it. So I love that you share that, especially when you're talking about goals of like $100 million. You know what I mean? Still knowing that even in those situations, no matter what the amount of money is, the posture still needs to be aligned. Can we talk about that? What it was like for you to reach that goal of your clients having $100 million in new revenue?
Well, it's 250 million now. So,
Oh, okay.
and that's just from last count, right? So technically we have like these dashboards, especially like when you're working privately with me, I have a dashboard where I can see all of your numbers. So, uh, the revenue is really the last number that I'm looking at. Because
Okay.
most people, that's how we decide what a successful business is. But it's technically all of the other numbers that is
Right.
helping me get you to those numbers,
I
right?
understand.
And
Yes, yes.
so I think if I were going to say anything of reaching those goals, it is that people now know their other numbers. So, for instance, when you're talking about internet businesses, right? Like which what all of us have,
Yes.
how much traffic are you getting to your buy buttons, to your opt-in pages, to this? Like, when you're podcasters, if you're doing sponsorships, it's how many downloads, how many impressions, how many of these things, so that because that is how you build the revenue, right? Well, most
Yes.
of the time, unfortunately, most people aren't paying attention to those numbers enough. They don't know what make those numbers grow. They stay in the mindset of I haven't reached my goals yet because their goals are always monetary. So let's say if somebody says I want to reach $10,000 a month. And then I go, okay, so let's start breaking down how we're going to reach $10,000 a month. And let's say it's a podcaster per se, and they're an author, and they go, okay, well, I have this, my podcast, and we have we have sponsors and stuff on our podcast, and then we sell books, and then I can do speaking engagements, and then I can do all of this. And so once we outline, here's all of the places that the revenue can come from. Now it's time to start reverse engineering because you're leaving it all to chance. And instead of leaving it to chance, now I'm going to reverse engineer. So, okay, if you want 2 speaking engagements a month and you want to charge $5,000, whatever the number is for that speaking engagement, then who are we getting in front of and how are we making sure that they know that you're available to speak? So if you need to talk to 10 people this month, did you talk to them? Did you talk to 10 people who have the power to hire you? And most of the time you start getting crickets at that point, right? And then they're almost ready to run away, right? And it's like, no, 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 come on back because this is what you hired me for. Come on
Yeah.
back, come on back, come on back. And I promise it's going to be gentle. It doesn't feel gentle now because
Right.
I'm having you face you, but eventually we're going to get past this and you're going to be like, wow.
Mhm.
And that's what I think of when we talk about the 100 million to 250 million in revenue is I think of all of those people that I got past not knowing their numbers.
Mm. Thank you for that. And it makes perfect sense what you're saying.
Mhm.
What were you about to say, Christine?
Well, I was just thinking, we've had that conversation several times on the podcast about financial wellness and knowing your numbers. And
Mhm.
it's funny because Shannon and I were just talking about this in our pre production. Every week we meet ahead of time and we were looking at those numbers. Where are our numbers of views? Where are our numbers of downloads? Because we know that to be true. Like if we want to shift something, you have to look at all the little numbers and what's working and what's not working. And I love Tina, that's the way I work in the world is that reverse engineering. So I love that that's your method and how you do things because, I think it's powerful. Like, I think it
Reverse engineering is also a spiritual concept that most
Mm,
people wouldn't even think of it as spiritual. So, like, I can dive from scientific to spiritual. It don't even matter to me.
I love it.
But remember when you're talking about visioning and all of these kind of things, most people are disconnecting it from the part that can actually make it go. So you're seeing the end result, but then what happens is after you have that vision, you're going to get the next step. And that next step might seem like something that feels so disconnected to the end result, but it's the pathway of getting there. And that's the other thing that I think is so huge is understanding the client journey for whatever you want to do. And even though I'm calling it a client journey, it could just be a process journey or whatever. So, for instance, if the end result is you want somebody to buy your book, then what are you doing? What are the steps you're doing to get them to that? Right? If
right.
if the end result is I want them to give me a testimonial. Okay, like for instance, you guys have had 192 of these, right?
Yeah.
Or this
Yeah.
is the 192nd, right?
Right.
So
Right.
at the end of the day, what if we had a process that 7 days after um somebody is on your show, you're literally emailing and texting and it is automated and saying, "Hey, what was your experience on our show? What did you like? Maybe it's a little survey. Would you mind taking the time?"
Mm,
All of that is now new marketing. Tina said she absolutely loved that we had a
right.
process because most people don't have a process, right?
Yes, she
Like
did.
that's now something that y'all can put in your social media because it's the
Mhm,
truth, right?
mhm,
Like,
Thank you.
um, just having that and being intentional about it, what you track and measure grows. It's
mm,
like, so once you're intentional about it, and like I said, even though it's not technically a client, there is a journey that happens. When you are more intentional about that journey, the better those results are.
neat. And I'm gonna just repeat this for our listeners because it really stuck out for me. What you track and measure grows.
Mhm.
I just think about that about gardening because it's spring in the South. I know where remind me where you are, Tina, in the
I am
world?
outside of Philly right now. Yes. So
Okay.
it's still
So
a little
y'all may
cold.
not be right. Somebody I was talking to up north was talking about snow, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," right? Because we are full on spring. And but I think about that, about what you track and measure grows. It's the same thing when you're in relationship with the earth and you're making sure you water it, you're making sure you're paying attention, you're making sure, so all those things I think are so interrelated about our attention and our focus and our intentions and how and then the releasing it to spirit.
Mhm.
I believe in we set our goals, we take incremental steps to get there, and we also release a part of it because we may not know how we're getting there. Like you
Mhm.
said, it may come in a weird way.
Yeah, one of my favorite things I used to tell my clients is, "What's your A?" And they would look at me like, "What in the world do you mean by that?" So you have 26 letters in the alphabet. And most of the time, I work with a lot of smart people with a lot of letters behind their name, right? And so, smart people with a lot of letters behind their name, they typically come in and they want to know from A to Z, and then they want to know from one to a trillion. They want to
Mm,
know what all of these steps is going to be really before they get started.
mm,
And that is the wrong way to approach business or to approach a goal. And so for me, when you're approaching a goal, what you really want is you want to see that vision first, then you're reverse engineering what you think those steps are going to be. So let's say we have the steps from A to Z. Okay. Now, my only job is to focus on A. And once A is done, I'm going to cross it off and I'm going to move everything up and I'm going to focus on A again. I'm not focusing on Z because the second I take my mind off and go down to Z, I am not giving my all to A. And that is the problem with most people is they're still they come up for air, right? Like when you think about it, I want to make $10,000 a month. That's what most people say when they come to me because they feel like if they got 10,000 in revenue per month, they feel like that's like a safety place, right? So if
Okay.
I help them get there, they're constantly looking at, okay, I'm not at 10,000 yet. I'm not at 10,000 yet. And I'm like, so now they're questioning the other steps. Got to stick to those other steps and you got to go full on in those other steps. So I'm always going to say, what's your A
What are you working on right now?
right now? And are you fully focused in it?
Love it.
Mhm.
Okay. We talked a little bit before the show, and I would love to touch here before we go to our wisdom in action and what you're doing for yourself this week. We were talking about the importance of stories, right? Documenting stories. You're talking about A through Z, 1 through a trillion, no matter where your clients are, the different steps. What comes up for you when you talk about that?
You know, I believe that right now it is so important to document your stories, right?
Mhm.
Especially in the Black community. You
Yes.
know, there are a lot of people now who are passing over
Mhm.
who were the first at something in our community. First person to be a psychiatrist, the first person to do this, the first person to do that. And those stories aren't documented. Okay. Then there are the stories, like for instance, I talk a lot about Brinkley Hill. That's part of my story. And Brinkley Hill is a place that was part of the Underground Railroad. There
Oh, wow.
was William Brinkley. He was a conductor. Most
Mm.
people know about Harriet Tubman, right?
Mhm.
Harriet
Mhm.
Tubman was one of the conductors who went through William's space. He harbored a lot of conductors, okay? If you were to go look anywhere online right now, and if you were to type in Brinkley Hill, it's going to send you to a place in Ohio.
Okay.
Okay. It is not going to tell you the rich history of Brinkley Hill. And
Mm.
so it was a place which was a place outside of Camden, Delaware. And
Mm.
so for me, what I know right now is if a lot of the stuff happens that some of the powers that be want right now, within a generation, that story's lost
Mhm.
Right.
in one generation. One.
Right. Because they were just trying to take Harriet Tubman out of the archives and off all the websites, and there was
No, I
such
didn't
a
see that.
fuss. They put part of it back, but not even all of it, because
But
that's
not
what's
even
been
all of it.
happening.
Right.
Because
Wow.
what they're doing is trying to whitewash everything.
Mhm.
And, whew,
And even the story of Harriet Tubman, and we could really go down a whole
Mhm.
dissertation, but I won't. But
Let's take a little path.
but even the story of Harriet Tubman has been whitewashed forever
Mhm.
because Harriet Tubman talked about the visions that she had, right?
mhm,
Because when you talk about leading all of these successful trips, and she talked about she had visions and she was guided, and they stripped that completely from the
mhm,
story. I mean, when
Mm.
you talk about the witches that were burned at the stake. Like when you talk about all of that, that was really them really being in alignment with their God and being guided. And we've
Mhm.
changed the narrative because they wanted people to think it's bad so that you won't
Mm.
go and become aligned,
Mhm.
become grounded, and
mhm,
allow all of those things that your own creator wants to bring inside of you to come up. That's what's happening. And we really need to tell our own stories. It's so important. It just
Yeah.
really.
And what it reminds me of is what we're talking about, the 8 dimensions of wellness. I remember I was around the corner at this wellness center and I was like, Lord, how do I have a degree in psychology? And I never knew about the 8 dimensions of wellness. And it was just like this voice. Everybody needs to know about it. They need to know about the 8 dimensions of wellness. And here we are, 192 episodes later, books and all this stuff. And it feels like we're just at the beginning of it. Like this is the beginning of the next phase of conversations and things we're going to have is what it feels like. So I hear what you're saying. And I appreciate the work that you're doing. I would love to tap in and see what you're doing this week intentionally for your intellectual wellness. What's your wisdom and action that you're working on?
I am being very mindful this week to give myself space to write, to journal, and not writing a book or anything like for a goal, but just to allow whatever needs to come up. I feel like that helps you get unstuck. I feel like it helps you release resistance, and it helps you really, no matter how much I love computers and AI and automation and all of that stuff, like that stuff is my jam, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing like a pen and a paper. There is magic in a pen and paper.
I really think it's true. And like us connecting people to resources is one of my favorite things that I knew about Christine when I first met her. Tina, we were at Starbucks. We used to be every Monday at like 8 a.m. when I first joined Manifestation Mondays. And she showed us this Rocket Book. You know what a Rocket Book notebook is? So it's an
Oh,
electronic notebook, right?
hang on, I
I
got
know,
one
yeah,
right
grab
beside
one of
you.
them.
Said,
Okay. So it's this electronic notebook that you write in. You can choose the list. You could pick different lists on an app, right? And it sends your notes. Look at this. So it looks like a notebook, right? They have different sizes. You can wipe it off. One you put in the microwave, it erases, all this stuff.
Wow.
But when I wrote on it, it didn't feel like paper and a pen. I said, I'm that nerd. I am that person. Said, no, I love it and maybe I'll use it, but I still have to have a normal notebook and pen. So that's what I think about when you say that.
I love it when I'm traveling,
Yeah.
Tina, because it does take a special pen, which for somebody that's ADD, that's a little challenging because you have to keep up with the pen.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is your notes, when you write on it, you just do the
Yeah.
QR code and it sends it to where you want it to be. So this is like an automation thing, like which is totally your jam
Yes.
because it could go to Dropbox, it could go to Google Docs, it could go to Evernote.
Evernote.
You
Yep.
decide where it's gonna go. So then
Wow.
all your notes go into one place. And, yeah,
I might
it's
need
a
to
really
revisit it
cool.
because
Yeah,
even
I'm
like my
I'm I'm
podcasting.
I'm
Yeah.
about to look it up as soon as we
Yes.
hang up.
Right.
Right?
No, really.
They're
Yeah.
usually at
Yes.
almost any office supply store, and they also have a tiny one. Now this one, I think I write too big for it, but I got this one for my plane, like but it's tiny, and I write a little bigger. But look, I am organized on the go. That's my little note to myself.
Good job. Yes,
I
you are.
love it. I
But
Yeah.
love
it's
it.
so fun, and I go through stages where I use it and then I'm back to pen and paper, but I can tell you, y'all, my stack of notes that's pen and paper because I love to doodle too, is this high, and I can't tell you where any of those notes are, like,
Oh.
they're somewhere, but if I have it in this, I can pull up, "Oh, this project or this project," because, I really resonated when you were talking about all your different streams, like Shannon and I have,
So glad
you
you
know,
said that.
20 projects going
Yeah.
on at one time. And it's like that part of the system and where does it go and how do you keep track? And when you are, a juggler, knowing which color of the ball you're throwing up in the air and if
Mhm.
you're catching it or if somebody else is catching it, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So,
And I wanna talk about the 18 streams too, Tina, before you leave the stage, okay? But I know we're in our wisdom and action. So, Christine, you wanna go next or you want me to go next? How
mm,
you feeling?
my wisdom and action. What am
Yes.
I doing this way for intellectual wellness?
And while you think
I
about it, Tina, what
Yeah.
was your specific I wrote down journal for you. What was your hashtag?
Mhm.
I feel like you said 2 R's. What did you say?
Which one? Revenue?
Your
Writing.
No.
You were
Writing and
writing. Mhm.
okay. I wanted to make
Writing.
sure I got yours, okay.
Yep.
Yes, you said that.
I'm gonna join Tina in resetting my writing practice
Yes,
because I used to do morning pages all the time and I love them. I love getting up and writing and I've had the really and it is a bad habit and I'm gonna say it, but I've had the bad habit of checking the news first because I want to stay informed. I want to know what action I need to take today about calling my representatives and things like that.
yeah.
But there is so much of a fire hose going on right now that I've really been noticing when I start with the news, then I don't get to my writing or so I'm gonna reverse that this week and join you, Tina, in writing first
You
is
you
what I'm
know, and I have a process I call slow mornings
mm,
that, it's just something I do every day. It's I don't have to reset it. It's just
mhm,
always there. And so I made it a deliberate process that I have to be fully aligned before I deal with another person.
Mhm,
And
mm.
so a lot of times, and so some people tell me that this isn't practical for their life because they're waking up by an alarm clock. That alarm clock
Mhm,
is going to jar them out, and then they're going to start doing all of these things. And so then I asked them, well, what does it look like if you didn't have to wake up with an alarm clock, or you woke
mm,
up where you actually are giving yourself an hour more or whatever
mhm,
before you do anything? And so then even when you're taking your shower, you can be a little bit more mindful and present in that shower.
mhm,
And, my meditation and, the scripting, the writing, the all of those things. And then it's like, oh, now I'm good. I can
mhm,
tell you that I can go into crazy situations and not react because I took the time to be
mm,
good. And I think if we started teaching that a little bit more, that
mhm.
we would change mental health,
mm,
I agree with you.
period. Just if we started saying, nope, take the time to be good first.
Mhm. I
Because now,
love that.
I mean, think about it. Now, let's say, Christine, you're having a bad day and you show up to a meeting and you bite our heads off and we go, ooh, and that's all we're going to do. But if I'm not good, now I'm going to react. And so now we're going back and forth instead of seeing it for whatever it was that you just might be having a bad day.
Mhm.
It's just so much. It, there's such a difference when you take care of you first.
Oh, I agree with you. Like the grounding, like one of my favorite practices, and I've been a little off because of the pollen here in Georgia, but one of my favorite practices is to greet the sun. Like to
Mm,
start with my prayers and meditation outside and connecting with the earth and just really, you know, what did you say? Like getting good with yourself first,
getting good with
right? And
yourself
getting
first.
aligned. Yep.
Aligned. Yeah. Getting
Mhm.
aligned.
Mm.
There's so
She
much things that there's so much that can come in those whispers of being aligned,
whew,
being good with yourself first. And that's before you put on any, put the clothes on, put on any makeup, we put on the mask, we
mhm,
put on all of that. But what if you're just good? Like I wake up happy.
mm,
And I wake up happy because it's intentional. I don't
mhm,
need not one other thing to make me happy. It's all gravy,
mm.
but it's
I
because it's
love that.
intentional.
yes,
I love
and
that so much.
and it's interesting, I'm on the same page with you ladies, like, making sure I hold the non-negotiables. Tina, you've been better at yours than I have, mine has slid a little bit more, to the point I was going to sleep last night, I said, "You know what? I did not write. I might get out of bed to write." You know what I mean? I said, "No, I'm gonna let myself rest. It's okay. I will get back on it." But um, take the time to be good. That's what I said. I
Mhm,
said align first, right? Reverse
Mhm.
engineer. I love starting with the end in mind. And this is your goal. How do you work on getting there? Those are the things that I have down that I'm thinking about for my intellectual wellness right now.
mm, mm.
And I know
I'm
we are
thinking we're gonna have to have Tina back
I
because
know, but I
just
wanna I
like
wanna talk about these 18 streams, even if
okay,
it's for a
go a little over.
second, 'cause I
Shannon,
Let's go a little over.
Shannon keeps it on track. I love this.
You
I'm
got it.
thank
watching. I'm
you.
She is
watching.
she is
Yeah, how are
good.
you on time? Do you have a second to talk about how you manage these 18 streams, Tina?
Absolutely.
Okay, because
Absolutely.
y'all, I heard this story about this woman in this story with Dennis Rodman, and it inspired me. She had 85 accounts pulling this man's money when he got paid, right? And so Christina and I talk about profit first system and how we intentionally allocate certain percentages to certain things. I usually don't think about 18 streams yet. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the first couple, right? Can you speak to what whatever you think about in that moment? I don't wanna dictate where you go because I know we have a few seconds, but
Yeah,
what do you think about?
well, for me, when it's talking about your intellectual property, just like
Yes.
what you ladies are doing, I mean, think about it. There's a podcast. There, how many ways can that be monetized? My God, the brand itself could have products. The brand itself could have candles and journals and all of those kind of things. Then there's the sponsorships coming in. And then there's like speaking engagements. There are consulting and coaching and like there's so many ways. And see, most people go, oh, well, I can't really do that because then I'm not being focused. But to me, they're all intertwined. So I have the same message regardless of what way you want to come in. For
Mhm,
instance, if somebody doesn't, let's say they broke, but if they want to work with me, they can buy a book. And
mhm,
that book technically has the same information that I'm going to help somebody in my coaching apply, right?
mhm,
If I'm going to a corporation and I'm consulting, I'm still using the same intellectual wealth that I have, that same wisdom. And so it's just about packaging it in different ways and being intentional. It looks overwhelming, but it isn't, especially when you start thinking of the where we are in this world right now. How much of the system am I going to automate? And I'm putting me inside of the automation. You're not getting stiff automation. You're if I when I see somebody, I go, hey, guess what? That email is hey, it is the same concept. So it's just an extension of me. It it is all part of me. And you can go so much further faster when you start thinking of the world that way.
Mm,
mhm.
Tina,
Thank you for that.
if somebody wants to work with you, now we have all your socials, we have your website, we're going to put all of that in our show notes, but you want to give a shout out about the best way for somebody to reach you and connect with you?
You know what? Today, I just released a quiz. I worked on that thing for a year. I
Wow.
released the quiz. So it's tinabrinkleypots.com/quiz.
Mhm.
Okay.
If you and I think I gotta do a redirect. So but quiz, it'll work because if you capitalize the Q for right now. But
Hmm,
um that quiz will walk you through if you're truly leveraging your intellectual property. It's going to ask you the right questions so that you can see where you are on the scale and what it is that you should work on next. Because sometimes there are some people who haven't even really mapped it out. They don't even know what their expertise is that they could monetize.
mhm.
But then there are some people who they already are doing it. They just haven't really looked and were very intentional on the monetization part.
Right.
And then there's every step. And then there's actually building the legacy, like I was talking about, telling your own stories, making sure those stories live, selling those stories even to networks and stuff today, because everybody's looking for content. So
Mhm.
Mhm. It's true. I love this quiz. Good job. I'm already halfway through it.
Mm.
So I can't help it.
So it's shorter
ADD,
than
give
the
me
50
something to
pages.
do. I'm on page 5 of 9.
Yes,
Very
good.
simple, y'all.
Yeah.
Very direct. It's very exciting.
and you
So
ladies will have to send me your address because, like I said, I turned my 17-page coaching assessment into a book. And so I want to get it to
Yes.
y'all because it
oh,
is
Thank you.
like I
fun.
took real good care of making sure like that whole it's got a nice like a leatherish kind of
Mm.
Mm.
cover and it's just yeah.
Oh,
So I
we
want to
would
That'd
send
be
it to
great.
love
you.
to see that
Thank you.
and share it with our audience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tina, it has been so delightful talking with you and just your expertise and your heart and your groundedness just shine through. Like,
Thank you.
what I'm so excited to be connected to you and so excited to introduce you to our audience as a resource
Yeah.
for the Trailblazers Academy. And y'all go out there and connect with Tina. Like, I was on your YouTube earlier and you have
Mhm.
some fabulous videos. I was just like, whoa, this is an incredible wealth of information.
Oh,
Mm.
thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely starting to talk more about AI and what's coming down because I just want people to be prepared. But I
Mhm.
definitely want in this moment to just thank both of you, Shannon, Christine. Like, first off, when you guys introduce yourself and you're like, I'm the black and then I'm the white, I'm like, oh my God, I love these women.
Mm.
Like, who
Thank
who even starts off that way? Like,
you.
you guys are very intentional and I love it.
Mm,
Again, like I said, the first thing I notice is how systematized you guys are. And
mhm.
that is so, because it just frees you up to do
Yeah.
other things. And I love it. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me.
Well, thank you, and
Absolutely.
you've inspired us because 'cause I've already
Oh,
got,
there
like,
you go.
20 things in my head about, like, "Oh, this could be systemized.
Yeah.
Oh, this. Oh,"
We
and
reached the
Tina,
first
we
million.
do send our
Tina!
guests, like, 2 to 3 days afterwards, we send you your links and the
Yeah.
ways that you could share the podcast, but I don't have a thing about testimonials on there, so, gonna be
Good idea.
doing that. You'll see that change in your email.
Mhm, and I'm gonna send you a list because I feel like I want y'all to 6 months later
Mm.
give them a surprise. "Hey, I was just thinking about you, and I was thinking that here's a great way to reshare your episode that'll
Mm,
help you build more expertise or whatever out in the world, more authority." Like,
Love that.
nah, yeah, I got you.
mm. Oh,
Thank you so
thank
much.
you, Tina.
That's
Thank
good.
you, and I just can't wait to stay connected and have you back,
Yeah. It's
on
gonna be
our
good.
show because I just know we could talk for hours because you're just a wealth of information.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tina. So lovely to be connected with you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I
Mm.
could keep going.
We
I'm
are. We're
just
going to. It
so
is what it is.
delighted.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We talk
Oh,
and it what I love is that it feels like so much. Like she said, we hear that a lot. Should you be doing all of this stuff?
mm,
Are you focused? Are you on A if you're
mm.
doing A in 3 different companies? But yes,
When you take a
you
quiz,
can be.
like I said, I'm on page 5 of 9 of the
Yeah,
quiz. It just affirmed all the things we're doing because I got check,
yeah,
check, 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 check. It was like,
yeah, good.
"Oh," it made me
We're
feel
almost
good
there.
because usually it's like, "Oh, you should just be doing
Right.
this one thing," and I'm just
Mhm.
not built that way. Like, life is to me is not one-dimensional. So
Right.
I am stuck on 5 though, Tina, because, that's where we've got some room for growth. So, Shannon, anything our audience needs to know before we close
Mm.
out episode 192, my friend?
Yes, yes, y'all. We've been talking about it. Volume 3 is here. The doors are open. We have a good amount of authors that are looking forward to sharing their stories and resources. If you want to be one of the 24 that we're looking for, if you know somebody who should be one of the 24 or a couple, right? We have a couple of the ladies who are gathering up their amazing friends and relatives that they know would be a good fit. Let us know. Email us at
Mhm.
womenconnectedinwisdompodcast@gmail.com and we can get you over the information about what we're doing and how we're going to support you through the process of becoming a published author with Connected in Wisdom Press.
Mm. Yep, fun, y'all. Gonna be fun.
Yes.
Our first class coming up is how to write an awesome bio in 250 words or less. So
And
we
it
help
sounds
you
simple.
harness your genius.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but when you do so much over decades, like all of our ladies, 250 words is like, how do I say what I need to say? Like Tina was talking about to go to the next point in the business. So we're
And what
here.
tools can make it simple?
And then, a lot of tools, and you don't have to use all of them. I know I was talking about being tired of tools, but maybe it's because we're trying to do too many. Let's make it simple. Let's see the little things we can tweak, and we're there to support you in that. So join us live at 5 next week. We will be here wrapping up season 23 with episode 193. In the meantime, don't forget,
Be well
be wise, and
and
be
be
whole.
whole.
Peace.
Thanks for listening. This has been the Women Connected in Wisdom podcast. On air live on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern via Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be part of the conversation and get connected at womenconnectedinwisdom.com.